Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are on to episode 23 of season 3, and this one is called Wetwired. Brian, tell us a little bit about the legacy of this episode.
Okay, so it's kind of a mythology episode, but not the kind of mythology episode that would, if you took it out, you wouldn't notice that it was gone. So in that regard, it's kind of its own standalone little thing. But I think it does shed a little bit of light on the character of X. Gives us a bit more insight as to where he fits within the hierarchy of things. So for that alone, it's worth kind of taking note of. So not essential mythology, but certainly mythology nonetheless.
And IMDb rating, are we going to have a look at that?
Yeah, go on. Fire a number out of me. You got it right last time.
62.
62?
Yeah.
Not far off. 59.
I'm getting better at this.
Okay. Now, am I to assume that because you guessed higher with this one than you did with Quagmire, that you would rate this higher than you did Quagmire?
I am guessing, based on the content of the episodes and how it fits into the overarching sort of thematics of the show, where the fans would put it. Not where I would put it, but where I think the fans would put it.
All right.
So,
okay.
So
Right. Because I gotta say, I will say this: if I was if I hadn't looked these up, and I was a betting man, I would have actually bet that fans put Quagmire higher. So I was surprised.
It doesn't deal with aliens, and it doesn't deal with the overarching sort of story. I feel those ones don't get as high ratings.
I don't know. I know, but it's just like because it's such a relational one for Mulder and Scully. I just feel like, although that being said, this one is in quite a big way as well, isn't it? Yeah.
You can kind of see the pattern.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming.
Okay. So we'll get into it then. We open up and we see this man who he keeps seeing the same guy. So he starts off and he's burying this body and he's like, "You'll never kill anyone again." And then he goes home, washes his hands, and then the dude that he just killed shows up at his house. So he whacks him with a spade and kills him again. And he's getting him in the boot, and then cops show up, and the two cops that get out, they're this guy again. So he attacks them, and it's just like, and then when he looks in the boot, the cops look in the boot of his car, find the dead body, and he's like, "Sarah!" So he's clearly killed someone very close to him, either his wife or his daughter, or or whatever. But so clearly this guy was seeing people in the faces of other people. As far as openings go, where does that put you?
Oh, that is an opening. That is a wonderful opening. Yeah, this grabbed me immediately. The whole the idea of the man first digging the grave, and then you're like, okay, this is a bad guy, but then he says you'll never kill anyone again. Okay,
bit Dexterous before Dexter.
If you kill a killer, are you a good guy? So as he sees that man return from the grave, I didn't know what was going on. It was awesome. It was so great. And then the little glitching on the screen as the faces changed. I was really curious about where this one was going. It's a hook,
Okay.
Just grabs you.
Okay. So Mulder. So we have the opening credits, obviously, and then Mulder meets an informant that we've never seen before, but apparently this guy has given Mulder, told Mulder to meet him because he's got information. and he gives Mulder a newspaper article. And Mulder gets a bit pissed when the guy won't tell him who he is. So he's just like, "What? You give me a newspaper article, that's it. I'm supposed to chase this down on your word. You won't tell me anything about you. I don't know who you are. This is BS, dude." Which I kind of understand, but also I kind of think you've chased down worse leads, to be perfectly honest, on the word of people who
But we all remember the picture from Jersey Devil, you know.
Yeah. It's just like, dude, you're not chasing this guy's lead. That he's at least got a proper newspaper article. He's saying look into this a bit more, but you're willing to go off some drawing by some street vagrant.
Although throughout this episode, it does feel as if the government agents, the deep throats, are coming out and they're like, you know what, solve this anagram, and this will lead you to a map that's going to take you to a place, but I won't tell you what's in that place or whether you should be going. It feels very like tenuously put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Particularly when you get to the finale, but we'll get there.
Yeah, it does make sense though. It make like I get like the pieces of information that are being given are pieces of information that could conceivably be that Mulder would conceivably latch onto. Mm-hmm. Like if Mulder saw this newspaper clipping and had heard about the other story of the thing that we find out about in a bit, then that's something that Mulder would conceivably on his own volition look into. And obviously, not to jump ahead, but given that we learn that X is behind all this kind of giving of information, X has to protect himself. X is the informant, and that's a big deal to do with the episode. A lot of the thing around this episode is X is the informant, but the stuff that he gives, is it enough for Mulder? You know, or should he be giving more? Or is the fact that he's even giving anything putting his own life at risk? And it's really a study on X's character and the question as to, is he going far enough? Is he not going far enough? But we'll get there a bit more when we get to the end. So Mulder and Scully go to the psychiatric hospital where the guy from the opening sequence is being held. Mulder gives Scully the lowdown. So I couldn't read my own writing then. So that awkward moment when you can't read your own writing. He gives Scully the lowdown on Joseph Patnick, who is this man from the beginning, and Dr. Stroman, who's the doctor looking after this guy, doing the work upon him, tells them that he's prone to outbursts right before he has an outburst, and he also tells him that based on his symptoms, based on what he's done, he would suggest he believes this guy has probably taken amphetamines, which is quite a big thing that will crop up later. But at this point, there's no reason to doubt the guy. But and we get the first of, because I will say right up front, I think this has the potential to be a very, very good episode. Right. There's one thing about it that is a bit of a sticking point for me, and it's the number of coincidental incidences that happen that put Mulder and Scully onto the trail of the truth. And this is the first one. So the first one is the guy has an outburst because he just happens to be watching. Like, we've got to remember at this point he's no longer got, he's not being drilled with the TV that he's been watching at home, so he's not getting that signal going in. So he should be, the reason he has an outburst is because he sees the actual guy. So it's not, he's not it's not like at the beginning where he was seeing it in faces of people that weren't him. No, this is actually the actual guy. So Mulder and Scully are outside just as this guy happens to see a news broadcast with this dude. So he has an outburst. So if he hadn't have had an outburst at that very particular moment, Mulder and Scully wouldn't know later that this is the guy that's causing him to,
Well, to bring it into real world incidences just now, the TV is training him to hate, bring his worst fear out. Yeah, that's the ultimate thing of the movie, or the TV episode.
His TV, paranoid. The one he was watching at home. Yeah.
And maybe he watches news because he's got all the cassettes.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so the news. So if you look at the news now, every time you look at it, Putin is on the TV.
Right. Okay. I don't watch the news.
Whatever you put on the TV, they're talking about Vladimir Putin. So
right. Okay.
He's in there and it's on the TV. It could be somebody that was renowned and on the news constantly, which drove him to picture that as his worst fear, and then it's just on the news again.
Okay.
Could be plausibly.
All right.
All these
news. No, the thing is, it's not. If this was the only time it happened, if this was the only time that something where it's like, oh, that was nice timing, wasn't it? It wouldn't bother me. It probably wouldn't even register, because that's just something that you do in TV shows to put you on to the next kind of step of the case. It wouldn't bother me, but it happened several times. Certain things happen where it's like, bloody hell, wasn't that good timing? Or bloody hell, what's the chances that, if they hadn't have done that, Mulder and Scully wouldn't know about, and so we'll get to it in a bit. So that's the first one. So he had to freak out whilst watching the TV because that guy, the dictator guy, pops up on the TV. So Mulder and Scully go to check out his house. Scully asks, as they're going into the house, Scully asks Mulder where he got the case from, and he tells her about the informant kind of thing. When they go into the house, they find two kids watching Die Hard. So it's a funny moment. It's a funny moment because they get caught, blah blah blah. But the fact of the matter is, these are two kids who've broken into this dude's house. They're obviously wagging school. They've broken into his house, and now they're sat there watching Die Hard. The problem is that if they hadn't have done that, Mulder and Scully Mulder particularly wouldn't be in a position where this guy's TV would be on. Like, literally, this is a plot device in which Mulder and Scully have to see this guy's TV being on, so that when it's on, they see the whole static thing happening, which puts Mulder onto the case of the guy who just so happens to be changing the thing in the thing at the time that they're there. So, like I say, it's not the fact that it's. Do you know what I mean? It's just we've just come from something that. Okay, it's a coincidence. It's good timing, but it's a coincidence that I could buy, as you said. You look at the news at the moment, Putin. So it's something I could buy, but we go straight from that to, it just so happens that this dude who they've incarcerated, two kids have broken into his house and are watching TV, and literally the only purpose for that is because, for the sake of the story, we need this guy's TV on.
Do we?
Yes. Because if this guy's TV isn't on, then Mulder doesn't see... Because obviously they're standing there, they tell the kids to go, so the kids get the hell out of there, and then as Die Hard carries on playing, the TV goes... and it cuts out. And that's what gets Mulder to go over to the window and see that the cable guy is kind of messing with the box, and that's what puts him on to, okay, I'll make a mental note of that. So literally, if those kids hadn't have been in there, like, you could do it a different way, you know, like literally, as Mulder and Scully are showing up to the house, they get out of the car, they're going up the drive, and they pass the cable guy. The cable guy's already there, he's up the pole, he's doing something. Mulder clocks him, don't think anything of it at this point, because why would you? They go into the house, they find the tapes. But it just feels like they've done it in such a way where it's like, well, that's needlessly kind of... It's you know what I mean? It's needlessly contrived.
Got to say, it didn't really bother me at all.
It just jumped out at me as a really contrived way of delivering this piece of information when it could have been done in a much less contrived fashion that doesn't draw attention to the written nature of the scene. I've watched this episode before rather passively, you know, as we've said many times. When you watch an episode in a more passive fashion, stuff like this doesn't really bother you that much. You just go, right, okay, yeah, that gets us on to the next bit. But because I'm watching it and I'm making notes and I'm like, these kids don't need to be here. It's just they're literally there to get Mulder to see the TV, so that Mulder then sees the cable guy, and it's just this really contrived way of, like, what good timing. What good timing that was. If they hadn't have been there, Mulder wouldn't have... When they could have just literally written it in a way where, yeah, they go up the drive, as they're going up the drive, cable guy's already there. Not a big deal right now, but later on, Mulder's going to clock the cable guy again, and that's when he's going to piece things together. It would have been a much less contrived way of doing it. That's just my personal thoughts on it. May not feel the same way, but whatever. So Scully finds a full catalogue of news broadcast VHS recordings. They go back to the hotel, and so Mulder's watching tapes. They're all pretty boring. He's not finding anything. So he goes in to see Scully and says, like, I'm pretty much ready to kill someone myself now after 3 hours of that nonsense. Scully finds reports on the Russian dictator, all catalogued on nights that Patnick had killed someone. So she thinks there's a clear link between the violence on television and this guy, this dictator, and the amphetamines that Patnick had supposedly taken, according to the doctor. They've not seen any medical chart. But although if they did, I suppose the doctor could fake it anyway. But yeah, Mulder says no.
Like, I am appalled with their organisation of the VHS tapes. They are just stacked all around the TV. It is so disorganised and horrific. I feel OCD clambering up inside.
It's like, how about a pile of watched and unwatched guys? You know, come on. Like, how do you know which ones you've watched here? So, yeah.
I actually found myself wondering, how many trips did it take them to bring those up to the motel rooms as well? Because there's, like, a lot there. Like, I don't know why. A lot of tapes.
This guy's been, like, recording the nightly news for a good long while.
Did you not have the fear? See, they were in his apartment and they go to the cabinet. I was like, dear God, he's a collector. Oh. Going to be Blu-rays or DVDs or something.
That used to be me, but with like with TV shows that it used to be me with the X-Files. That was my X-Files video collection that I taped off TV before they got released on video to buy. So yeah, I can relate.
It's my shame in the X-Files.
I love that Mulder is the one who kind of poo-poos the theory here. So, like, Scully's like, you know, a link between violence and television, and Mulder's like, nah, it's not spooky enough. It's not X-Filesy enough. I'm sorry, I need something a bit more abnormal. This ain't working for me, Scully.
Yeah. Maybe a ghost in the TV, maybe.
Yeah, Ghost in the Machine. Ghostly, like The Ring. It's like ghostly videotapes. But it does set up essentially what this episode is about. The link between violence and television. Do movies create psychos? Do they make psychos more creative? This kind of thing. So Scully watches the tapes into the night. Mulder he's like, yeah, poo-poos the theory and goes off to bed. Scully carries on watching tapes into the night, and as she's watching them, she starts to hear voices through the walls, as if Mulder's talking to someone. It's like, why is Mulder talking to someone? And then she just randomly crunches some ice. She's looking direct at the screen, and she's like, crunching this ice. How much ice she must go through and she's crunching it, I don't know, but she goes out to get another bucket of the stuff. So she must go through this stuff. But when she goes out to get another bucket of ice, she sees Mulder talking to none other than Cancer Man. Dun, dun, dun.
And it's wonderfully done with some matches, isn't it? Just you see Mulder all happy and jokey, and then the camera, the second person is lit up by a match, and it's the smoking man.
Yeah. I will say this episode is directed by Rob Bowman. Once again, I do notice that in the way that he blocks the actors, the way he uses the shots and things. Like the shot, for example, of when Mulder and Scully go into the house before they find the boys. It's all done in this one shot where the car pulls up and they get out, the camera follows them in, and up to, like, I feel like another director, they'd have done like wide shot, mid shot, over the shoulder shot. We'll stand here and talk because I don't want to walk and talk, and then so just something I noticed. When Rob Bowman's name pops up, I do notice that he likes to move the camera. He likes to do stuff with it. He's more interesting.
I'll tell you what I noticed, Brian. I noticed that Cancer Man has the easiest job in TV, because this, along with Jose Chung, the guy just has to turn up for like 2 seconds.
Yeah. It's just like. The thing is, you become an iconic character as well. Like, Cancer Man is such an iconic villain, and yet, for the most part, all we ever see of him, like the majority of his scenes in this show, are just, he pops up, maybe says one line of dialogue in a really sinister way, and that's it. That's. Yeah. And yet, he's this really huge, iconic villain when it comes to TV shows. But, yeah, so we go from there to this woman who's washing up, and she starts to see static around. Yeah. First, she sees it in the soap bubbles in the washing up bowl. It's like, oh, so instantly here we go, something's about to kick off, and then she sees what you assume instantly must be her husband on a hammock in the back garden with some blonde, and they're kind of kissing, and she instantly gets furious about it. So you think that's got to be her husband, but obviously because we've already seen how this episode played out. It's a husband, but it's not a husband. But she does the only natural thing any woman in that situation would do, which is grab a shotgun and go out and start blasting.
Yeah, like, there's no rationality going like my husband knows I'm here, yet he's cavorting with somebody right outside the window.
Yeah, and like even just like, I mean, I don't know about you, but my first response, if that was my wife, like my first response might be to just go out there and deck the guy, like throw him off the hammock and deck the guy, give her a few.
Join in.
Oh, come on. Give her a piece of my mind and deck that dude and say, right, go on, grab your bags, sling your hook. But no, her go-to, her instant like, nope, that's it, shotgun. It's
a bit. The cupboard, and it's got like the Hoover, and
as I can imagine, he picks up the Hoover, goes out, and starts clonking him over the head with it. But it's just like it's seriously like a bat, like causes a commotion. It's still effective. We could still have the police have just arrested a woman. She said she saw her husband with this guy, but it turned out to be a guy who's now currently in hospital because she took a baseball bat to his head. Why did it have to be a shotgun? Why did it have to be so severe reaction to this thing?
I think the most shocking part about it for me was the fact that not that it wasn't real, but it wasn't her husband.
I know. Some poor guy and his dog just got blasted with a shotgun. It's like, flipping out.
Oh man, so unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. It just feels over the top. I mean, I don't know if that's a commentary on America and maybe America at the time. Like shootings and things like that. It's just like over here that does feel like a really, really excessive reaction.
Yes.
But in America and American culture, and if there's any Americans out there who watch our show or listen to our podcast, maybe you could shed a bit more light on the mentality here, that maybe this is a commentary on just how quick Americans are to go to the gun as a solution to the problems. I don't know. Maybe that's what it's trying to say, but maybe this doesn't seem like such a stretch to some people.
I did like the revelation of the leggy blonde.
A golden lab, yeah.
It's terrific.
Oh man. So Mulder shouts through to Scully. It's just like he doesn't even have the good grace to come and knock on a door. Like, Scully, there's been another shit. No, he just like shouts through the motel wall. It's like, come on, Scully, there's been another shooting. So he shouts through to her that there's been another murder. She looks agitated. She checks the car ashtray. So she goes to the car, gets to the car before him, bizarrely. Mm-hmm. She's checking the ashtray, but it's clean. And when Mulder gets in, she asks him if he took the car out. And he's like, no, not really. I mean, I took it out this morning, but just to, whatever, get breakfast. But so she's like instantly distrustful of him and stuff. So I think Gillian Anderson does a pretty good job performance-wise in this episode of somewhat of that, the growing, the growing paranoia that's in her. So she does a good job with that. But so we get to the crime scene and Mulder fills Scully in. That's where we find out that the man that the woman shot was a neighbour who was sat with his dog. Poor guy.
Having a nap, I think this is.
Just having a nap, yeah, with his dog sat on him. Scully finds more tapes. And then, see, this is the thing. Mulder sees the cable guy again, who works real quick. Real quick. Right, so this bothers me, because...
See, I thought that I was wrong, but I thought he was getting rid of the evidence as soon as the murders had taken place, because obviously what they were doing had worked. But he's not. He's not getting rid of it.
He's putting another one in. It's like, okay, what's that for? Is that for the next victim, or do you not know she's killed the guy yet, or which is implausible at best. Yeah, it doesn't make sense that he's putting one in. It would make sense that he was taking one out.
Yeah. It
doesn't make sense that he's putting one in. My other thing is that Mulder looks out the window. The guy, just as the guy rocks up, so the cable guy starts climbing up the pole. So instantly Mulder goes out of the house to go down the street, and as he gets there, the guy's already gone up, changed the thing, or put the thing in, come back down, got in his van and drove away in the time that it takes Mulder just to get out of the house and get down the street. The timing is stupid, and the fact that this guy has put one in bears explanation. I want an explanation for that. Doesn't make sense, but there you go. We need to find this thing. I mean, yeah, Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Unless he's just put one in for a new neighbour, because we already know that we already know from
one. Like
well, I don't know, because if you look at the first victim, the reason the informant said, I can't remember who says it, but we find out that the first guy who killed someone, there was a woman who'd had a similar incident, like just down his street.
Yeah.
So one could assume that maybe this guy's gone and maybe he's not taken that thing out. Maybe he's just swapped it over. It's like, okay, she's done the deed. Let's swap it over. Which is really the height of laziness, really.
Yeah.
Rather than going to a completely different area, completely different street, let's draw attention to what we're doing by swapping it over. But that seems like the only plausible explanation for why Mulder finds one of them things in there, which is that, okay, we know that there were two people practically in the same street that had a similar thing, so maybe that's what they're doing here. This woman's finally gone nuts and killed someone, so the guy's turned up and he's pulled it out, swapped it over to another one, and they'll see what happens next week with whoever's that's hooked up to. That would be my theory behind that. So I'll let them off for that one, but it does bother me that Mulder sees this guy. He's not even climbed up the thing yet. He's starting to climb up the thing. So Mulder goes out, and by the time he gets out there, this dude's already driving off in his van, which is like, not buying that. Sorry. So Scully looks distrustful when Mulder he shows him the thing that he's pulled out of the pole, and he tells Scully that he'll get it checked, because she's like, do you want to get Agent Pendrell to check it? And he's like, no, I'll do it. You go and interview the woman. So, which right there is like, okay, but it is very indicative of something Mulder would do. Yeah, we've seen him do that multiple times throughout the show, where he practically orders, go and do the autopsy, Scully. You take care of the autopsy. I'm going to do this cooler job that is more entertaining. You look at the dead body, whatever. So Mulder goes to get it analysed by the lone gunmen. Always nice to see these guys popping up.
Entertaining exposition in TV.
It is, yeah. They do make exposition entertaining, and they do hide the fact very well that it's exposition. Helped greatly by the fact that there is three of them. And I think I've said this before when we've been doing these podcasts, is that because there's three of them, and because they're three very distinct personalities, each one of them can give a different piece of the information, so it feels much less expositional. Whereas in previous shows, like I think of, like a show like Alias, for example, there was a character in that who was the exposition guy, he was the computer nerd, and every time he gave exposition, I'd roll my eyes, and I just found the character super annoying, as I often find those characters super annoying, because they're just one person who is that guy. So it's, I think that's why the lone gunmen work so well, because they are essentially just exposition, but because there's three of them, you can hide that exposition so well within character. So they say that this thing looks like a device that is used to block premium cable channels. So, like, if you're not paying for cable, you have that. It's hooked into your house. It stops you getting cable, which sounds feasible. It sounds like something that exists to me. Probably does, to be honest, or did at the time. But this one ain't blocking anything. It seems to actually be emitting something. So, it's colour bars. It's got colour bars and tone generator, which is emitting a signal. So Mulder kind of just leaves that with them. Which, I mean, like, we don't really need them to do any more work on that to see what's going on here. It's pretty obvious as to what's going on.
Yeah.
But Scully calls Mulder, who tells her what he's found. So he's literally just about to call her, but he kind of he just answers it because she's calling him at the same time. So she calls him out on not having gone to see Pendrell, but he's like, no, I didn't go to see Pendrell because. But before he can like start talking to her, she starts hearing this clicking sound on the phone, which suggests that somebody is listening in. So she gets very sketchy on it and then just hangs up the phone, which kind of makes Mulder feel a bit like, oh, okay, that was a bit odd of Scully. She starts pulling the room apart, a bit like Gene Hackman in The Conversation, but she doesn't find anything. She's not finding any bugs or anything like that, but she just tears the place apart. Then when Mulder tries coming through the door, she rather excessively pulls her gun and sets off a few shots. Though she does fire at the top corner of the door. So it seems quite clear to me that at this stage she really doesn't want to kill anyone, but these are kind of like warning shots. It's like,
I think it's our whole equilibrium skewed because of the thing in her senses. I think she's just not acting.
She's not aiming very well.
She may be trying to, but it's going off.
Yeah, okay. So Mulder calls Mrs. Scully, Scully's mum, tells her that Scully is missing before hanging up, before saying he's going to hang up because something's just gone. It's like, are you kidding me with this? Like, you know that Mrs. Scully has already, like literally just over a year ago, has had to deal with the loss of her daughter. She went missing. She'd lost one daughter through being killed, and before that, the very daughter you've just rung her up to talk about was abducted. So you phone her up and say, "Yeah, Dana's missing. Oh, hang on, I just need to hang up. I'll call you back." What the? That's like.
It's so hilarious. It's hilariously bad. Mm-hmm. I was laughing at that sequence.
Like, come on, Mulder. Even for you, that's cold. So Mulder fills Skinner in about the VHS tapes in order to try and get Skinner to have his men tread lightly with Scully. Because obviously, given what she's done, they really need to track her down. But Mulder's like, no. Like, he's trying to be all understanding and stuff. And it's just like, yeah. Kind of not, given the fact she's just unloaded her weapon on you, this ain't really going to wash. We need to get her and just take her down at this point. So Mulder calls X. He puts the X on the window to call him. But just after he leaves the X symbol, he gets a phone call from Frohickey to tell him that they have something. Why he can't tell him what that is over the phone while Mulder sits and waits for X, I don't know. Mulder has to go there and see it for himself. Yeah,
and it's not that exciting, but I do like how Mulder explains he's colourblind by showing them his tie. I didn't quite understand, but
I think it was his. I think it was his exit, because obviously we've had jokes in the show before about how bland Mulder looks. You know, I think about Humbug when that guy says, "I've seen the future, and the future looks like him," and we see Mulder just kind of stood there. It's like because he's just grey and bland, and and I think he wears bland ties, and I think that was his shorthand way of saying, "I'm colourblind. Hence the reason I wear these dull-ass looking ties." But it's like I actually don't know what colour this is right now. You tell me.
Well, he's only is it red green?
Red green colourblind, yeah. So, but
maybe he doesn't know there's more colours.
Okay, so they tell him that the signal that is coming out of is a colour signal within the frames that can make someone open to suggestion. It turns out Mulder is colourblind, which is why when he was checking the tapes that night, it didn't affect him, but it did affect Scully. So he gets a call to go ID Scully's body, which is like, yeah. It's clearly not going to be Scully. There's no tension in this moment because it's not Scully. Like I like seeing Mulder's reaction to this situation, seeing how he's got to deal with that. But it's like there's zero tension in it because we know a character of Scully's magnitude ain't going to be taken out off screen in an episode like this. Yeah. Okay.
We'll get to that.
So,
that's maybe second.
Yeah, he goes to ID the body, but as he's going in to the morgue bit, the informant dude from the beginning shows up again, and he's just like, "Keep following the evidence. Keep on it. Keep going. Don't be distracted by this nonsense." So like Mulder gets pissed off once again, and he kicks the car in frustration, which is a moment I quite like. I like.
I was in fits of laughter because it just shows you like he's always losing at fights. I felt that the car door won that battle. It was such a half-hearted, horribly inept kick.
His foot just bounces off the side of the car, doesn't it? Yeah.
I wouldn't have been surprised if we seen him limping, like after that.
So yeah, Mulder kicks the car, then he goes in to make an ID. And shock.
Let me just jump in here a wee second, right? Because this again, I went from like giggles already into full-blown laughter with this guy. So this person who works in the morgue or wherever knows that somebody is coming to ID the body. Mm-hmm. Somebody who knows this person, who may have feelings for her. And as he walks up, she was found nude with a bullet in her head. And I'm like, this is the most least tactful guy on the planet.
I'm surprised he didn't rock up eating a donut while he was doing it. Crumbs falling down the front of him.
And the fact that he's standing there anticipating this moment makes me think that he's such a saint.
Okay. Shock horror. It's not Scully. It's like, so we can breathe a sigh of relief. It's not Scully. But obviously this is all a moment that we needed. Once again, a slight contrivance. This is clearly the way Matt Beck writes. He needs something to happen. He needs a piece of information to be found. So he throws a little contrivance in there that leads them on. Like, it happens all the time in TV, but for whatever reason, with Matt Beck's writing, I've noticed it quite a lot in this episode. It's quite a big convoluted way to get Mulder onto the trail of Scully's mum, because he says somebody better inform Scully's mum. Doctor says, well, we tried, but she's not picking up, so he thinks, oh, Scully's gone there. I kind of think that maybe Mulder didn't need all this hassle of IDing a body to make that connection already, even like when Mulder phones Scully's mum to drop the bombshell that he dropped earlier, if we'd have had Scully's mum maybe not being, maybe being a bit blasé about it, like, okay, well, all right then, keep me informed. Just kind of there's something off about that, and that's like, oh, hang on, that's where Scully's gone. But we're going to go round the houses to do it. We're going to do it in a really contrived round the houses way with loads of these little plot elements in order to just get this one line of dialogue that sends him on the trail. All right, so where are Mulder goes to see Mrs. Scully. Mulder goes to Mrs. Scully's house. He kind of barges in when she opens the door, looking rather chilled. And then Mrs. Scully ends up having to talk Dana down. So Dana's there. She comes out from behind a wall, pulls a gun on Mulder. Can't trust him. It's like Scully kind of gets in the way of the gun and tells her to kind of calm down and says, look, you can't trust him, but you can trust me. That's why you came here. And she basically talks her down, so that she drops the gun, and she kind of realises that, yeah, clearly I've got a problem. What I've been seeing, something's going on. It's a nice scene. It's handled well by Anderson. She's obviously very good at these emotional scenes. You know, she rarely phones it in. It's got to be said. But that's it, really.
Yeah. They talk her down remarkably easily.
Well, it is a mum. It is her mum. I do because like Mulder isn't able to talk her down.
But we've seen a man kill his wife. We've seen a woman kill what she thinks is her husband. You know, that like, strong bonds there.
Yeah, I mean, the man kills his wife because he literally sees the dictator's face on it. He doesn't see his wife. He sees,
yeah,
you know, and we get told that what this thing does is it preys on your fears. So she's not seeing, you know, someone's face that she doesn't like. It's not the same MO kind of thing with everyone. Her fear is that what if she can't trust Mulder? What if the one person she trusts the most is actually the person she can't trust? So her mum there, it doesn't really come into that. It's not really a factor. So the fact that Mulder can't talk her down, and that it does take Mrs. Scully getting in the way and being the one to talk her down, is, yeah. Because, yeah.
Yeah.
Because she is all prepared to shoot Mulder. It's like, and it is quite a thing that Mulder isn't able to talk her down in this situation. It's not Mulder that talks her down; it's her mum. So I do like that. So Mulder goes to see Scully in hospital. Scully feels ashamed, and there's a real nice line that Mulder drops after that. So she says she feels ashamed, and then he says, "Now you know how I feel most of the time." It's just because of the whole conspiracy nut kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
I like when he walks into the hospital and turns the TV off. And he just
yes,
click, and then
yeah. Enough of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Mulder says that the signal preys on your anxieties. For Scully, it's betrayal. Mulder suggests she may have actually seen Cancer Man. So she talks about this, you know, I was so sure I'd seen you with Cancer Man. And Mulder's like, actually, that may not be too much of a... You may have seen Cancer Man. I mean, it wasn't me with him, but yeah, it's funny that should crop up. So Mulder speaks to the doctor, just outside, Scully's doctor, and the doctor says that Scully had high serotonin levels when she was brought in, which have now calmed down. So she doesn't have high serotonin anymore, which is why she's on the road to recovery pretty quickly. Obviously, she's not been. There's something to be said about being a TV junkie. Like what TV does to the brain. Obviously, the people that have been infected, they've just like constantly got this stuff going in. Obviously, Scully had a major burst of it that night that she was watching all those tapes, which skyrocketed the serotonin and stuff. But obviously, stop watching the tapes, you get rid of it pretty quick. But Mulder asks the doctor. He has a again, it's that keen mind that we've seen in the past from Mulder. He knows to ask the right question, and he asks the doctor if she'd have diagnosed amphetamine abuse for Scully's condition, to which she says no, which instantly puts Mulder onto the trail of Dr. Stroman, who we saw at the beginning. So he rings up the psychiatric ward where the guy had been working, and he's no longer there. Apparently he's gone. He's gone off to work somewhere else. And then when the woman on the phone said, "Do you want his number? I'll get you his number," Mulder guesses that it's, and this is again, it's like. So is that I'm to assume from this that there is only one motel in this town. So the number that this guy gave was the number from Mulder and Scully's motel. So the assumption there being that this guy doesn't live in this town, he doesn't really work in this town, he's clearly up to some government experiment thing that was going on temporarily. So Mulder surmises, oh, well, he must have been staying in a motel then. So he guesses, so he reads out the number that is on his motel matches thing. And it's like, oh, well, that's convenient, wasn't it? Very convenient that he was staying in the very same hotel that you and Scully were staying in. Okay. Moving on from yet another convenient thing in the plot. It gives him the piece of information anyway. They go to the hotel. I like that when we're there, he's like, do you want me to go first this time? And the guy's like, hell yeah, because obviously last time they went through the door, Scully shot her gun. So that was a nice touch, nice little moment. So Mulder asks for a record of the calls made from Stroman's room. The guy goes and he gets the records really quickly because he goes off to get the records. Mulder sees an ashtray, looks in it, sees Marley cigarettes. Oh, that's Cancerman's brand. Puts it down, and then the guy comes back with the records. It's like, blimey, that's efficiency for you right there. So the calls made from Stroman's room, turns out, Mulder gets Danny, who we've had in the show multiple times. Whenever he needs something tracing, he calls this guy called Danny, who we never get to see. He checks a number off the list, which leads Mulder to a house. So he goes to this house, he's kind of snooping around, and as he's snooping around, the cable guy turns up. He shows up, and Mulder peeks through the window. He sees Dr. Stroman in there. Cable guy goes in, talks to him. It seems like they're waiting for someone to show. So Mulder starts to look round the back for a way in. Hits 2 gunshots. Busts in there like gangbusters. And who is there? None other than X himself. So literally...
I'm not too sure. Like, he's at the front door. He knows there's a door that's unlocked there. He's got a vantage point where he can see through the window what's happening. And he decides to leave these 2 guys and go round the back of the building. Yeah. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, I just couldn't understand that at all.
Yeah. And then once he's done that and hears the gunshots, he busts the door open, which instantly gives him away to whoever's just shot these 2 guys. It's not his finest moment of detective work, it's got to be said. But we get X. Clearly X has just killed these 2 guys. In cold blood. He admits as much that, this was always the job that he was tasked with doing, which is to clean up the evidence. But that he was the one who was behind the informant all along because he was hoping that Mulder was going to get to these guys before he had to do what he had to do. So we find out really where X sits within the food chain here. So he works for Cancerman. He's basically Cancerman's cleanup guy. But that makes him privy to information, and that's why he gives Mulder information, and he gives Mulder information in the form of newspaper clippings that are things that Mulder could conceivably latch onto, because by doing it that way, it's less likely to come back on him. So Mulder blatantly calls him out on this and says, "You're a coward. You're a coward. Rather than coming forth with this information and saying what's going on, you're a coward. You feed me scraps and you hope that I'm going to find the information. But I'm the one who's going to end up in the firing line. You're not willing to put yourself in the firing line." And X's response is literally, because Mulder pulls his gun on him, and X is like, "Well, what are you going to do? You're not going to shoot me because you need me." You know, it's that. And it's a difficult moment, really, because X has killed these two guys in cold blood. Mulder knows he's killed these two guys in cold blood. So essentially, in order to keep his informant, Mulder lets X go. When what he should be doing is arresting his ass.
Yeah, I would say there's even... They double down on the complicity in the next scene where Mulder covers for him verbally. Yeah, you know, really doubling down, just showing that he's accepted things for the way they are.
It's unacceptable. Like, if that was Scully, she ain't letting X leave that room. She's arresting his ass. And, like, I get, like, the value that that X has for Mulder in the sense that, you know, he gets information from him and stuff, but this is too far. This is too far. He knows he's just killed these two guys in cold blood, and he lets him walk away. Why does he let him walk away? Well, because he gives him information from time to time. That's not acceptable. Hashtag not my Mulder. I don't like Mulder in that moment. He's not done the right thing. What he's done there is completely unacceptable. It's morally unjustifiable. And the more I think about it, the more it makes me mad. He's covering up murders. That's what he's doing. There's no polishing that to make it better than it is. What Mulder is doing in this moment is covering up two murders. I don't like it. Don't like it at all.
Necessary evil. I think he may justify himself as, but I think it could be a decision that comes back to regret. I would like to see it addressed in some way.
I'm afraid you're not gonna get it seen. It's there is something that is going to play out. So this is the second to last episode of the season, isn't it? The next one is Talitha Kumi, right? So something happens in Talitha Kumi that should have happened in this episode. Okay? I won't say what that is. I won't say any more than that, but we'll address it next episode. But there's something that happens in that episode. It should have happened here. This should have been the point at which Mulder and X part ways. I think Mulder should have tried to bring X down in this moment. And given that we know Mulder's history with fights, fisticuffs, it never comes off that well. I think Mulder should have literally tried to arrest X at this point. He should have said, enough's enough, this is BS, you've murdered these guys in cold blood, I can't sanction it, and I will not be party to a cover-up of it. I'm taking you in. Dust up, big fight, X wins, lets Mulder live.
Mulder's dead. Mulder will be dead at that point.
Well, yeah, I think... X kicks his ass, but he's got some level of affection for Mulder, and because of that, he walks away. And he leaves Mulder there. That is how it should have ended. But it doesn't. It ends in such a way that I can't condone. Which is a shame, because we get something next episode which, you know, you could have bumped that up an episode. you could have bumped it up to this episode, and it would have stopped Mulder from being someone who, in this moment, I don't want to accept as the hero we're supposed to follow throughout the show. Okay. So, as you say, we get scenes like a wrap up in Skinner's office where Mulder basically helps brush it under the carpet, and then the final scene is X meeting with Cancer Man to tell him that he did his job, i.e., he killed these guys. Cancer Man asks him about the source's source, because obviously they've killed the source, they killed the informant, which again just shows you how dodgy X is. That he even killed his own informant, so he's basically covered his own ass. Yeah, he's covered his own ass by making a patsy. He's sent another informant out there to shift the blame away from him. X tells him that the person remains unknown. So yeah. Wrap up. Go on.
Okay, from a wonderful opening sequence, this was pretty much all downhill for me. I wasn't overly keen on it. I liked some of the special effects. I had good entertainment because I was laughing quite a lot at the episode rather than kind of with it, which probably isn't the best. I was happy to see X back because it's a nice addition. I think Gillian Anderson gives a wonderful performance.
Yes, it's
but again,
wasted.
I feel as if Scully loses herself in this episode, and I don't like when Scully's not Scully because she's the anchor for Mulder a lot of the times. For me, I'm going to be generous and give it 3.
Right.
3 out of 5.
I was much more generous in my score when I watched this last night, and talking about it here, there are certain things about it that I didn't really think about until I was just discussing them with you, and it actually makes me angry that they would do this to Mulder. I don't think this is a well-written episode. I don't think it takes into account just who Mulder and Scully are as people. I don't think it's faithful to who they are as people, and I think it does a disservice to their characters for the reasons we've just discussed. I mean, that ending that's just... And it's fixable, that's the thing. There's stuff you can do to fix it. I feel it's lazy writing. I feel there's a reason Matt Beck is a visual effects supervisor and not a writer. I think, as you say, Gillian Anderson gives a great performance, but it's wasted. It's wasted in this episode. I feel like there's so many contrivances at the start. I feel like every time Mulder gets a new piece of information, it's through a contrivance. It's through a scene that is much more needlessly complicated than it needs to be, when you could just do something, as I said, with the cable guy or with the phone call to Mrs. Scully. It's just like, but instead, Matt Beck goes around the houses, because he wants intrigue. He wants to make the story seem bigger than it is, and at the end of the day, it's not that complicated. It's just a government experiment to send people doolally, and X is at the centre of it. The core thing, really, that the episode is getting to is X, his involvement, and I just think there should have been a big line drawn in the sand at the end between Mulder and X. I've taken help from you before. I've helped you before. It's been mutual. But this, I mean, I get it. Mulder's seen X kill in cold blood before, but that was a different situation. One, Mulder was like proper at the end of his rope because Scully was in the hospital, and the person that X killed had just literally tried to kill Mulder. So that was a very different situation. But this is completely different. This is X cleaning up some mess on behalf of the government. He's killed these people in cold blood, and it's just like, no, you shouldn't be accepting that. It's just, I think there's a good idea in here somewhere. I think that the things they're exploring, the things they're revealing, are worth delving into, but it could have been done much better. I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5.
Fair enough. So, next week is the season finale, which is Talitha Kumi, is it?
Yep. Talitha Kumi.
Tell me a little bit about this one.
So Talitha Kumi, if you don't know, that is the words that Jesus in the Bible used to raise Lazarus from the dead.
Okay.
He said Talitha Kumi, which is basically get up, basically. So to something to that extent, anyway, which plays a part in the episode. But yeah.
Is it a good season finale?
It's solid enough. It's of the three. So for Erlenmeyer, Flask, Anasazi, and Talitha Kumi, I would say it's the weakest of the three.
Right.
I think it probably gets a bit overstuffed, but it's still a season finale, which means it's a big deal. You know, there's going to be big revelations, things like that. So it'll be interesting. The season finales are always good to get into. So.
Excellent. So, thank you for watching or listening, whether it be on YouTube or iTunes or any other good places which our podcasts are. Join us next week for the season finale, which I am looking forward to. We can have a little conversation about Talitha Kumi. Thanks for watching, listening, and we'll see you next week.